How is the new covenant different from the old covenant? Well, it's newer. There we go. Thank you for being at First Methodist Houston today. What do you say a little bit about, yes, new covenant. Sometimes we think about these like somehow the Bible is divorced from itself. The covenants that God has with us through the land, through the nation of Israel, through the prophets, through the scripture, then ultimately through Jesus, they're connected to each other. Okay? And I find their values are the same in the sense that the relationship that God has with us is an expression of God's love for us. And what has happened over time is I think God has shown us more and more and more how much He loves us, and that is brought to its fullest extent and completion in Jesus. And so the covenants that we have in Scripture, I see as more continuous rather than divided. It is true that they broke down over time, and things like the law, God had a covenant with us, but we spun the law around so that it divided us from God and neighbor, and so God had to work a different way. But there's a continuation, there's a progression, there's a continuum that these covenants go through. So I don't see Scripture as sort of this divided document. What makes it different is Jesus. Is really, I think, the answer in the new covenant. It's Him. It's all about Him. It's His teaching. It's His life. It's His example. It's His forgiveness. It is about Him. And we've got this small group / class that's starting here at First Methodist Houston next week, and it's a Bible 101. It's for people who really don't know what's going on in Scripture. And we've got about 30 people who are signed up for it. It should be great. And so, when somebody comes to me and says, I haven't read the Scriptures, or I really don't know the Bible, the first place I send them is the Gospel of Mark and say, first of all, it's the shortest. You'll get through it. It's 16 chapters. If you haven't read the Bible, this is going to be tough goings, at least at first. Start with the Gospel of Mark. But the other reason I say that is that if you're going to know any story in Scripture, if you're going to know any story, you need to know Him. And because what He does and what He is able to do is the fulfillment of, like this question alludes to, what God has done throughout all time, but it's also the ultimate relationship we need to have. And so anything that we can do to get into a relationship with Jesus is going to be a great first step for us.